Good morning, welcome to CATEX TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. Today is Thursday, November 19th, 2015. If you want to follow us on Twitter, please go to CATEX TV. The Prime Minister of France has warned the French Parliament in Paris this morning of a pending attack using chemical or biological weapons. He used this phrase to extend the state of emergency legislation that President Hollande is trying to push through the French Parliament. Prime Minister Manuel Valls said, "We must not rule anything out. There's also the risk from chemical or biological weapons," although he did not cite any specific intelligence on such a threat. Meanwhile, the prosecutor in Paris announced that the key suspect in the Paris attacks of last Friday, Abdelhamid Aboud, was killed yesterday morning in the police raid on Saint-Denis. Police are still looking for another attacker involved in the Friday attacks named Salah Abdul-Sam, who is still on the run. The Swedish security services announced earlier today that the nation's terror level threat has been at the highest point since the system has been in use. The threat level is now set to high, or on level 4, the second highest level on Sweden's 5-point terror threat rankings. A level 4 alert means, quote, the probability that terrorists have the intent and ability to carry out attacks is high. The Swedish Security Service Director Anders Thornberg told reporters that one person has been arrested in absentia for plotting attacks and that the plans weren't directly related to Friday's attacks. The agency said that police had heightened patrols in public areas and would soon release a picture and more information about the suspect, about whom one local news channel said may be of Iraqi origins. Oklahoma, as you may know, has taken over the title of earthquake capital of the United States, more earthquakes than California, supposedly due to fracking, oil and gas technology, extraction technology. They're usually relatively small in the 2 to 3 range. One last night was not small. It was a 4.7 magnitude quake. It was centered near Cherokee, Oklahoma. It also shook most of the neighboring state of Kansas. It was reported about 1:42 a.m. this morning. It was about 6 miles southwest of Cherokee. It was felt as far away as Tucson, Arizona, which is 1,231 miles away. According to the National Weather Service in Dodge City, Oklahoma, there were so many birds that took flight after the earthquake that it could be seen on radar. There was an interesting development yesterday in the proposed merger of Towers Watson and Willis. The vote had been scheduled for yesterday, been postponed. It's now been pushed back to November the 20th. Towers had announced that they needed more time to prepare the stockholders for votes. 3 big proxy firms have called for Towers Watson shareholders to reject the deal from Willis, which is some $18 billion. Nevertheless, Willis still remains sanguine about the prospects of the deal passing, and it may have to increase its offer, though. One big negative came out yesterday is that BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, which owns about 6% of Towers Watson, had refused to support the deal. So Willis is either going to have to up the offer or this is not going to happen. The 2 major initiatives announced by Aon last week have now sparked fears of job losses amongst Aon personnel in London. Both the Aon carrier link for Lloyd's and Aon's client treaty raised the prospect of the intermediary transacting less business through its London wholesale arm and through its traditional labor-intensive methods. As such, the labor-intensive placement work with individual risks shown around the market by skilled brokers with very comfortable shoes will diminish. A decrease in the amount of this work creates scope for reduction in the number of brokers working in London's wholesale unit of Aon, where remuneration costs are, as elsewhere in the London market, relatively high. With 20% less work to do, it doesn't make sense for Aon to have the same number of brokers to do it. Interesting. We'll see what happens there. At least 15 people have been killed this morning in 2 suicide blasts in Nigeria that rocked the busy mobile phone market in the northern Nigerian city of Kano. 2 female suicide bombers blew themselves up, one at either end of the market. The attack comes only a day after another bomber blew himself up at a market in Yola that killed more than 30 people. Both attacks are the work of the Islamic jihadist group Boko Haram. And in the United States, the predictable reaction, not to Nigerian bombings, not to the Beirut bombings, but to the Paris bombings, has now ensued. Hundreds, if not thousands of people who have never been to Paris, unless they have gone to the exhibit at Disney World, have begun to terrorize and vandalize Muslims in America. Several mosques have been vandalized, and a number of suspected hate crimes targeting Muslims have been carried out after dozens of United States governors announced that they would not accept Syrian refugees in their states. There have been incidents of vandalism, threats, and hate incidents in Massachusetts, Florida, Texas, Kentucky, Virginia, Nebraska, Tennessee, Ohio, and New York. 26 governors, 26 governors from the right-wing Republican Party and one Democrat are saying they will block any more Syrian refugees coming to their state. I don't think that's within their remit. That's a federal issue. In one incident at a mosque in Omaha, an image of the Eiffel Tower was spray painted on its wall. In Pflugerville, Texas, worshipers arrived at their mosque yesterday morning to find feces smeared on the door and a torn up copy of the Quran on the doorstep. And the Islamic Center in St. Petersburg, Florida received death threats on the voicemail. This is exactly the reaction that ISIS wants. And it's exactly the reaction that people who do not have any understanding of Islam or of world affairs, but are urged to do so by people such as Donald Trump and others on Fox News, will in fact embark upon. And it's just what's happening. That's the news for today. If we have any breaking news, we'll come back and tell you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.